So now let's talk about the child combinator. So that was the parent. Now let's talk about the child combinator or combinator. So the child combinator, of course, we use the less than, greater than sign here. This one allows you to select direct children. This one allows you to select direct children of a parent. The space allows you to select descendant. It doesn't matter what level they are in. They could be 2 levels deep, 3 levels deep, 4 levels deep. It doesn't really matter. But for the child selector, it allows you to select the direct children only. So, like in this particular case, this div, only these two are the direct children. Only these two are the direct children. So only this paragraph and this div are the direct children of this div over here. So if I was to pick div that are paragraphs that are children of this, I'll only target this one because it's the only direct child for this particular div. So in that case, if I wanted to apply style to specific direct children, then I would use a combinator selector, but I would use a child selector instead, which is this greater than sign. Let's see how that works out. So let me say I want that div. I want a div. Then within the div, I want the direct children that are paragraphs. Then probably maybe I want to change the color to red. I'm only expecting to have one. Well, let me see how that works out. That shouldn't have worked out. So I have this paragraph. Did I close it? Yes, I did. Yeah, this shouldn't have applied. Oh, it will apply because I also have another div here that has a paragraph of this. So let me call this one, let me not call it a div, let me call this a section. And let me not call this a div, let me call this one, this is a section, this is a section. Then maybe let me call this one an aside. So you can see, in as much as this paragraph is inside this div, they are not the direct children, and as such, then the styling will not apply to it. Same case with this one. It is the parent is aside, but it's a great grandchild for div, but it won't apply because we have told it give me the styles for only direct children as far as the divs are, as far as paragraphs are concerned. So paragraph and direct children that are divs with direct children who are paragraphs. So if you're not a direct child, then that style does not apply for you. And that's why we have what we call now the child combinator, or simply select the direct children as far as this particular component is concerned. Okay, so that's also very powerful because when sometimes in some scenarios you want to format only some components that are direct children of other components, like maybe when you're creating a UL or another list and you want to target the list items, and probably maybe you realize that you have other components in there that you want to target, you can maybe just target specifically the direct children of a particular um, a particular element, so that now you can be able to style them as appropriate. Okay. Okay. So we have, yes. We also have next sibling. We have the next sibling selector. On the next sibling selector, this is where it allows you to select an element directly after another element and they share the same parent. You want to select an element that directly follows another element, but they are also having the same parent. So next sibling, parents, they have to be siblings, which means they have the same parent. And of course, they have to follow each other. So a very classic example would be something like this. If I wanted to target this first this section, if I want to target this section and this paragraph, they share a parent who is this div. So if I wanted to access this section and probably maybe change the background of this to a different color, what I would have done is I would have come here and I said, get me a paragraph. And then of course I put a plus because plus is what is used for the next sibling. Then get me a section. Then inside the section, maybe I want to change the background to purple. For now, I don't care about styles. As you can see, now that would work perfectly because what it will do is it will go look for any paragraph and any section that is directly following a paragraph. The section is directly following a paragraph and they have the same parent, which in this case is here. So I have this section here. It is directly following this paragraph. And since they have the same parent, they have to apply. If for some reason I had put a div here and there, it's not following up one another, then that style will not have worked. So if I put something here like a div, then you see that doesn't work. So because this div, this section is not directly following this paragraph over here. So there's something between them. So that's what the next sibling does. It checks for the next component following whatever you're selecting, so long as they have the same parent, but they have to follow each other right directly opposite each other. So if I was to remove that, then that would be able to apply. Space does not count as an element. So white space or tab and all that, those ones don't mind. You can use them as much as possible. What's important is the actual styling. So that's the next sibling. It picks the immediate next sibling as far as a component is concerned. And that's very powerful. Again, as you're doing on styling, you'll see where they come in handy. Then the last type of combinator selector is what we call the subsequent sibling. So we have here subsequent sibling. So what does subsequent sibling do? For subsequent sibling, it allows you to select all elements that are next siblings of a special element. For example, if I put a div followed by paragraph, so it will pick all paragraphs following a div, but they have the same parent. This one will pick the first one. This one will pick all the others. So the next one and all the others, so long as they have the same parent. This one we said we use a plus. I forgot to mention that. Then for the next sibling, we use a tilde. Tilde is that key just next to one. So we use that. So this one allows you to select all elements that are next siblings of a specified element. And of course, so long as they have the same parents. So select all siblings of an element following the element. So let me give you a clear example. We have this div and we have this paragraph over here. Then we can have another paragraph down here and simply say here, this is what we do. Then we can have what we do. Then I can have another div here with some lorem 30, something like that. So you can see this paragraph, maybe I can create another div here, and I can say courses offered. Then from here, I can put another paragraph and say, maybe put a list item, another list with 3 list items, something like that. So I can simply say diploma, certificate, bachelor's degree. So in a nutshell, if I was to target any paragraph that is following a div, so what I'll do here, I'll say something like this. I'll simply say, well, I can remove all these other styles so that I don't have any styles on my page. It looks neater that way. So I can select get me a div, then get me subsequent siblings that are paragraphs. So it means all direct children of paragraph. So they have to be paragraphs following a div. So they have to be a paragraph directly following a div. Then of course now I can have a color of red. For now, we're only just demonstrating what they do. We don't have a div that is a direct child. There's a direct parent to. Okay, let me look at my CSS, because I have this div. I have this is the direct child. So I don't have a paragraph following this one directly. So if I was to remove this, then what we do should have applied. Well, that's strange, because this one I was expecting this, because now that is the direct child to that. That's the direct child to that. That's strange.
Hey guys, my name is Sanjay. In this video, I'll be.
So I have that. Let me see. Why is that not applying?
Hey guys, I wanted to make a tutorial today on how to make this simple landing page. So I thought it looks pretty cool. So it just
You need to
has a
mute
navbar.
your. Okay. So I have a div that is following a paragraph that is a direct child to a div. Let me see. Paragraph that's direct child to a div, and all following paragraphs which I have here. Paragraph following div. Yeah, this should have been right. I don't know why it's not applying. Did I put the correct? Let me see. Did I put the correct style? Yeah, color
With some
is red.
links.
Okay, that is okay. Well, this should have applied. I don't know why this is not applying, but this should have applied. Same parents. So all paragraph following a div with the same parent. Oh, so what I needed to do here was to define another div, because this paragraph has to follow this div. This paragraph has to follow this div, because this div has to be the parent. It's not. They have to be siblings rather. They are not. They're not. They're not. They are related by virtue that they are siblings to one another. So this is what will actually work. So again, sorry about that. I think my structure was a bit off. So yes. So if you look at this style, I'm saying get me all the paragraphs that are following a div directly and any other subsequent ones that might be there. So that is how the subsequent sibling computer works. So it will pick this paragraph directly following a div and any other paragraph that is on the same level, like what we do here. You can see that applies. So if I was to apply another paragraph here, that will not work. Sorry. If I were to apply another paragraph here, then I say lorem 50. You can see that also works because it is a subsequent div. So it is subsequent as much as there is something in between them, but it is directly related to this paragraph over here, which is following this div. So ideally, that is how subsequent sibling combinators work. And those are the four that are there. We have descendant selector, which we define by a space. We have a child combinator, which we define by greater than. We have the next sibling combinator, which we define by plus. Then we have subsequent sibling combinator, which we define using a tilde or a tilde. It depends on how you want to pronounce it. Any question on the combinator selectors? Any question on the combinator selectors? Victor?
No.
Okay, so let's look at the third type of selector, which we refer to as pseudo class selectors. Pseudo class selectors. So what do pseudo class selectors do? Here, we define a style for a specific state of a content. So apply style for specific state of state of an element. For specific state of an element. Okay, so I'll give you a very classic example, and the state could be so many things. The states could be things like uh, when you move a mouse over something, that is called hover. When you visit a link, when an element gets focus, when you know, there are quite a lot of things that could happen so that now you are able to target that. So let me give you classic examples, and I'll give you using links. So using links, we can we can set default style for a link. We can set visited style. We can set active style, and amongst many others. We can check if something has focus. So, and so on and so on. So so this is what we're referring to as state. You want to apply style or styles for a specific state of an element. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a couple of links so that we see how this works out. So I'm going to create an anchor element, and I'll simply point to google.com. I'll simply say here, Google, for example. Then I can go ahead and now create the others, like Yahoo. Then I can also do Facebook. So this is Facebook. As you can see, my links, well, Google has already been visited, but my links have this blue and this underline text and that kind of stuff. So I might want to style them by default. I want to give them a certain style. So by default, if anything is a link on my page, this is how you're going to style it. So I want to make them look like buttons. So what I could do here is I could come to my styles, or even these styles over here, and I'll simply say, get me any anchor that's a link, like that. Then, first of all, I'll simply remove the underline. So I'll simply say text decoration, and I simply put none. All the underlines have gone, right? Then I can add spaces between them. I can simply say margin right. Maybe say make it 2 rems. Increase the gap between them, like that. I can also make them all uppercase. So I can say text transform uppercase. So you can see by default, I'm able to apply all those styles because it is a link. Now, what happens when they have been visited? So, I'll say a link, once it has been visited, now I want the text to be red. So I'll simply say color to be crimson. So any link that has been visited like Google, you can see now the color is crimson. And maybe I can simply say text transform to capitalize. So anything that has been visited, capitalized should be, not capitalized, yeah, capitalized should have put the first, well, let me put lowercase. I don't know why it's not giving me that. So when it's visited, well, it's giving me the, I don't know why this is not working. Probably, well, yeah, so let me leave it at that. Now, when you hover over it, which means you move the mouse over it, I want it to have a background of, say, green. And I want the color to be white. So you can see these are states. Default link, one that has been visited, whenever you move mouse on top of any of them. And of course, I can add some padding of maybe say 10 pixels all around. So what happens when I move the mouse over it? So when I move the mouse over it, you can see the color changes like that. So this is what you're calling a pseudo class. So this is a pseudo class, this is a pseudo class, this is a pseudo class. So it allows you to apply styles to an element based on its state. That is the hover state, this is the visited state, this is the default state, and so forth and so forth. So you can be able to uh, uh, apply different styles altogether. So maybe when it's not visited, I can simply say color, make it green, so that it moves from the default. Yeah, so that it moves from the default blue. So you can see that is how you apply styles. That's how you apply what we call pseudo class styles. Okay. So the syntax in general is this. So the syntax is you put the selector, you put full colon, then you put your pseudo class, then now you apply your styles inside there. So that is kind of like how this works out. So for pseudo class selector, that's how it works out. And I think these examples should reinforce that particular principle, where I've created 3 links and I've shown you how to style those 3 links based on how they look like when they're active, when they've already been visited, and of course when you move the mouse over them, something of that sort. All right. So that's pseudo class selector. And by the way, you can also use it for for things like focus or any of the properties that support pseudo classes. You can get the reference from the 3 schools. It will give you all the references that are necessary. So let's look at another selector, which is what you're calling pseudo structural class or structural pseudo class. So we have pseudo selectors. We also have structural pseudo class. So this is where you're going to target element based on their position in a document. So here you target an element based on their position on a page. So you want to target an element based on their position in a page, then you apply styles to them. Let me give you a classic example. Let's say we have an ordered list over here. This ordered list has 5 list items. Then maybe this is boxing. Then you have football, basketball, swimming, and maybe say rugby. Somebody asks you, what's your favorite sport? What's your favorite sport, for example, something like that. So what you're going to do is you want to highlight basketball over here. So, or you want to highlight boxing only. So what you're going to do is you will target the list item that is the first child, or the list item that is the last child, something of that sort. So that makes a lot of says that would make a lot of sense, so that now it tells you you want to select or you want to target an element based on their position on the page. So it should be a list item that is the second component. So what I could do here, you can come and say, get me the ordered list, get me the children that are list item, but now I want the first child. This one should have to first child. Sorry, this is first child. This is not that is not pseudo element, that is pseudo class. Pseudo class is one. So first child. Then maybe I want the font size. Font size to be 2 rem, bigger than the rest. Let me just say list item. Yeah, that should work. Font size is 2. First child is, yeah. It's just one. It's a pseudo class. That is strange. Why font size 2 rem? Okay, let me put color. Oh, this is font size, not font size. Font size. Yeah, I was wondering why the class was not applying. I wrote the style wrongly, but that's how you write it. So even the one that I had written before should have just worked, because I have an ordered list and I get the descendant of ordered list that is a list item. Then I get the first child, which is that. I can also get the last child, which is that. But if I want to target something in between, I can say nth child, then I specify the index. So I say nth child, then I specify the index starting from 1. So if I wanted basketball, it will be 1, 2, and 3. So here I'll put 3. So you can see basketball. Now we have applied font size 3, and maybe we can change the color to green, something of that sort. So you can see that is what we are calling a structural pseudo class. We are selecting an element based on its position on the page, and the position could be first child, nth child n, which means you want to specify the position which it occupies, and by you simply specify by counting 1, 2, I want the position 3, or last child if I want the last one. So, or if you want the ones that are odd, you can simply put here odd. Then it will pick the ones that are odd numbers like 1, 3, and 5. If you want the even ones, you can put even. So it will depend on exactly what you want to style as far as their position is concerned. This is very useful, especially when you're working with tables and you want to maybe make the tables readable by inverting the background colors of the rows so that somebody can be able to read from one end to the other directly. So it plays a very important role at that particular point. So that is how a structural pseudo class works. So based on position. Now, the other type of pseudo classes that we have, they are called pseudo elements. So you have to have, yes? Yes, Victor?
No, no, no.
Okay. So we have structural pseudo classes and we have pseudo elements. Pseudo elements are basically things that can be added to a selector to style a specific part of it. So things that can be added to a selector to apply certain styles to it. Okay, and this could be things like before or after. That's one way of doing it. You can do before or after, and you can also do first line or last first letter, or it will depend on really what you want to do. So let's start with inserting uh, uh, um, uh, content before an element. So sometimes you want to insert a content before an element. Maybe I can create a div here, and inside this div, I have some very long paragraph like that. That's the div. Well, let me make it maybe say 100, something like that. Then I want to add something before it over here. So something like a bar or something of the sort. So I'll simply say this div, I want to give it a class of tech, something of the sort. So what I'll do here, I'll come to my element, I'll pick something with the class of tech, then I'll put the element selector. So I want to put before that div. Of course, I'll apply the content over here. So I'll say content equals none, blank. So you're not going to see anything, but I can simply say, I can give it a width of say 20 pixels. Still, you may not be able to see anything, but I can give it a border of 1 pixel solid. Maybe let me make it blue. So now you can see I have this blue over here. Well, I could simply save the tech. I give it a width or a height of 100 pixels. I can also give it some padding of 10 pixels all around so that it's separated from the content. Well, I could have given this a padding of 10 pixels. Separate that. So you can now see it's separated. Width of 20 pixels is too much. Let me put it 10. Then I can give it a background of still blue. So you can see now I have added this. This portion that you're seeing over here is nowhere inside my HTML. I have just added it on CSS using before. So you can add content before or something, or you can add it after something if you wanted to add it after something like that, something of the sort. So it will be able to allow you to add that component. But then also what it can do is that these pseudo elements can also allow you to do things like format the first line or format the first letter of a paragraph, something like a drop cap, like the way you read newspaper, right? When you're reading a newspaper column, you have something called a drop cap, where the first letter is very huge, as you can see. Let me see images here, something like this. So you can see something as huge as this. Then, of course, the rest of the text is now small text. So an example of a small cap is something you can use a pseudo element for. So like, for example, for our page over here, which is this, I might want this L to be large. So I could simply say, get me the tech, and the tech element, it's a class.tech. Then I want to simply put the first line attribute, first letter, and I want the first letter to have a font size of 3 rem. So you can see it makes this text very, very huge. Of course, I know I might need to bring it downwards a bit to style it with the other component, but you get the idea. I'm not going to focus on that for now. I just want to show you how that works out. So you can do first letter, or you can simply do first word. Is it first word or first? Yeah, not. It's not actually first word. It's usually first line, not first word. First line. First line, not first word. First line. So you can have the first line very large, then these other succeeding lines become smaller as you go along. So this is very important. Now, also, you can use these pseudo elements to apply things like background. So maybe, as you can see, when I select this background, you can see the background is blue and the text is white. I might not like that effect. So probably maybe I could say, when I pick the text field, then I simply want the selection, and I maybe want to give it a background of green and a text of yellow. This is select, not selection. It's actually selection. It's actually selection. Yeah, that's what I was looking for. I was wondering why it was giving me an effect that I had not asked for. Then I can simply say color of crimson or this brown. So when I select text, you can see now it's no longer the blue like I have here. I have a different effect here altogether. So again, when you're talking about pseudo elements, that is what they do. And by the way, you can even use them to change these markers. So if I wanted to change these markers to other things, I could also use them for that. So I could simply say in the anything that is ordered list item, change the marker, and you want to change the marker to something like an art. So I'll simply say content art. So you can see now it has changed the content to art instead of number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Or I can put an image if I wanted to, something like maybe, yeah, I can really use anything that we want, but you get the idea. So it allows you to be able to apply that. So maybe say the font size. You can put the content to that, then you can change the font size to maybe say 1 rem. So this will be smaller, as you can see. And you can even change the color to something like crimson so that it matches what you want to do. You get the idea. So you can now really play with it. However, you want color does not have a U. It's the American spelling, something like that. So when it comes to not attribute, but pseudo element selectors, that is how they roll. They allow you to be able to change a lot of things like insert content before or after an element. They allow you to style markers of a list element. They also allow you to use selected portion of an element, like I've said, applying drop cap on the first letter or on the first row or things like that. So they are useful in very, very many ways. We're going to look at the effects. For now, I was interested in exactly how the selector itself works, not the actual effect it gives you as far as CSS is concerned. Really, I was interested in how the actual effect works. All right. Then lastly, we have something called attribute selectors. So number 4 is attribute selector, and this is very important because we use it so much. This one allows you to select and style elements with certain attributes. So select and style elements with certain attributes. And the attributes could be like maybe I'm targeting an input of type text, and I want anything that's going to be an input of type text to have this background. So you see the problem here is this. What I could do here is I can have a login form here. I don't have any form, but let me create a login form here. So I have div with an ID of login form. Then I have label, username. Then I have a field here, password. So username input of type text with ID of username, name of username. Not a problem. Well, I don't know why it's appearing at the top there, so probably let me create a few paragraphs. Those are very many paragraphs. Why are they not taking effect? This tech, let me remove that so that I don't know why it was behaving like that. So I have that. Then I can have a paragraph here. Then I have another label, and I put password, and it's password. And I have another input of type password, and I give it an ID of password. I put another paragraph here, and then I put a checkbox. Remember me. I put remember me. Then I'll put an input here of type checkbox with remember me. Remember me. Something like that. So you can see all these are inputs. So what would happen is if I came here and said I want to apply for anything that's an input, maybe say change the font size to 1.5 rem. So you'll see this one has changed, this one has changed, this one also changed. So all of them have changed. I've only been interested in changing inputs that are of type username. So instead of that, I'll simply say input. Then I'll simply say here type equals username, like that. Then you'll see, well, this should be in double quotes, not single quotes. Input type username or input type text, not username. So you can see it only applies to the text. So only the text is larger. All the others are much smaller. If I simply remove this, if I say all, it will not apply. If I say input type password, then you'll see it applies to this one only. So this is what we're calling an attribute selector. And there are so many attributes. I'm just showing you an example of how we can be able to use attribute selectors in order to be able to select elements based on a certain attribute. So I have so many components on my form. I want to style only the input elements that are checkboxes. So I want the checkboxes to be larger and not the input fields and so on and so on. So that is how we can be able to achieve such effects. I know that's a mouthful. Are we together up to that point? I know that's a mouthful, but I really wanted to look at these selectors, because once we know how to use the selectors, the next thing we're going to do is now to apply the actual styles that we want to apply to make our pages look nicer as we move along. All right. So I think I'll take a break at that. Then I'll share with you the video on, actually there are two because I had paused for some time when you are offline. So I'll share the two videos with you for the CSS and the selectors and how they work, so that you can familiarize yourself with exactly how you can be able to use those selectors. Because moving forward, we're just going to use the selectors to pick components on our page, apply styling to those components, then move on to other things altogether. Like now, how do we center components? How do we change the font? How do we change the color? How do we change the background? How do we give it a border? how do we make the borders rounded? How do we add spaces between them in margins and paddings or things like that? So that is generally going to be what our next class is going to cover as far as this is concerned. So it's very important for you to understand how HTML is structured and how we select components from the DOM or the document object model using these CSS selectors. That is simple selectors, combinator selectors, pseudo class selectors, and of course the attribute selectors. Those are the four main categories of selectors that are there. You just need to understand how each and every one of them works, then you should be good to go. Okay? Any question up to that point? I will share with you some task right after this. I had not prepared it, but I think I'll take about 5 or so minutes to prepare it. Then I can give you the challenge to try and see how you can be able to achieve that. Okay? Actually, I
Yes.
think actually I think it's already available, so I'll just share it with you directly so that now you can try the challenge and see if there's something you didn't get. You can try and do more research and see how that works out. Is that okay?
Yes.
All right, so we'll take a break at that. I'll share the video, then we'll pick it up on Monday again. Is that okay? That's so. That's fine, right? Okay.
Yes.
So I'll share the video.